Alright guys, we got the Lexus. It's a 2016 NX200t, and we are doing a front brake pad and rotor replacement, and we'll show you how it's done. Alright, so you're gonna just need a few tools. You're gonna need something to take the tire off. We need something to compress the piston and the caliper, and then you're gonna need a 17, 14, and a 12 if you want to make a brake line a little looser, which I like to do. And that's about it. First things we're gonna do is jack up the car, put on a jack stand, and take off the tire. Alright, so with the tire off, we had the wheel turned already so we could access everything easier. We're going to replace the rotor and the pads. Pads are a little low on life. I'm up here visiting my mother, so that's who I'm doing this for. And yeah, so we are going to remove this bracket, which is a 12 millimeter, just so we get more slack in the brake line. Then over here, we'll be removing the 14 millimeters right here, so we can release the caliper, change the brake pads, and then to change out the rotors, we got 17 millimeter bolts here and there that we need to remove the caliper bracket on it. Okay, not too difficult. Just I'll start the time lapse. Alright, so we got the two calipers bolts removed right here, 14 millimeters. When we remove the brake line bracket over here, we can take and put the caliper, hang it over here on top of the lower control arm in order just to free up some space and not leave it hanging. So now I'm going to work on removing these two 17 millimeters and the brake pads. We just got to pull out these retaining springs, which are super easy. You just take some pliers and just pull it out of their hole. Same thing, both sides. Pull out of the hole. Keep in mind we'll reuse these unless you've got some new ones in a brake kit. Alright, pads are easy to remove. Just a screwdriver and they slide right out of the grooves. Same thing, other side. Pop them out and there come out the old brake pads. Okay, now remove this bracket. And just by seeing the rest here, we're probably going to need to bang it with a hammer. Alright, with everything removed, just like I thought, it's going to need some convincing. So grab a hammer, mallet, sledge, whatever you got, and give it some taps all around. Alright, so it's a good idea if you have a steel wire brush. I just got a battery brush because we're working out at Mama's. But I want to kind of buff this up a little bit. And the same thing, we're going to clean up the caliper bracket. We're going to change these little clips right here. And you're going to want to brush those as well. So it's a good idea to kind of clean up the area as best as you can. After some scrubbing, hit it with a little brake clean. Alright, and here's the rotor we're going to be using. Here's the part number. Alright. And remember, rotors get shipped with some a coat of oil, so we're going to want to go ahead and spray everything down with some brake clean as well. Alright, now while installing it, slide it right on. And what I like to do is I like to take a lug nut and thread it on and keep it on the hub. Keeps it there while we work the rest of it out. Alright, so now we're going to clean up this bracket. I want to point out a couple things. here's the part number for the brake pads kit that we were using, and it also came with hardware. So the hardware have different part numbers on it, and they're not all the same. Okay, one goes the inner and one goes outer. All right, two different part numbers. Now, to replace these brackets right here, you just take a little screwdriver, you wedge in between them, and you just pop them out of place. Okay, so you get a flathead, and you just work them so they pop it on out. We're going to take that steel wire, I'm going to brush that all up. Make sure you match it with the clip down below as you pop them both out. All right. Alright, so the kit came with a little bit of brake lube, and these guide pins should be lubricated. So what you want to do is you kind of want to pop these out of place. And you see how it has its grease on it? We're going to go ahead and put some new grease, and we're going to do that for both of them before we slide them back in. Okay, there it goes. And we'll lubricate them both and slide them both back in. Okay, now with those new brackets in, the slide pins lubricated, now it's time to put everything back together. Now I don't have the torque spec for these two bolts, so we're going to call it tight, very tight. I'll get the torque specs and I'll put them down listed below, but I don't have a torque wrench with me. So you're going to just snug it as best as you can, as tight as you can. Now in here we're going to want to put a little bit of brake lube, or you can put it on the ends of the brake pads. Either way, where metal and metal slide together, we want to lubricate that. So we'll do that in the next time lapse, and we'll put together everything as well. All right, now it's time to compress the piston on this caliper. And there are a few different ways that we can retract both these pistons. Now, AutoZone O'Reilly's, they rent you out a kit pretty much for free that you could use to retract these. However, fanciest thing I have today is this ratcheting piston compressor. The way it works is you slide it in, and it's super easy. Slide it in, and as you basically tighten and ratcheting, is going to expand and push those pistons back in together. Okay? So as you ratchet, alright, now they're starting to meet, and every time I go, it's going to push the pistons back into the caliper. And you want to do it to sit flush, and the reason why you do this is because your new brake pads have a lot more meat than your old ones, so you need to push those pistons back into the caliper in order to fit your new brake pads. Super easy tool. And they're all the way compressed. Let's release it and go back the other way, and the tool pulls right out. Okay, we got the pistons retracted. Now, before we go ahead and put them over the brake pad, don't forget these retaining clips that we gotta slide in. There it goes. And the bottom one too. Okay. Now, when we push this new caliper in, you may need to push the pins in a little bit to fit them. See, there is play. So just make sure you fit it on and get it all put back together. Alright, now I'll put the actual torque spec in the description below, but same deal. You just snug them Make it tight as you can. Now that's it. It was a pretty easy job for these brakes and rotors. Now I'm gonna hit a little brake clean on that rotor before I put the tire back on. As you can see, my dirty hands touched it, and you don't want that on your rotor. All right, and that's it for this rotor and brake job on the Lexus. Pretty easy overall. I believe you guys can all do it at home yourselves. Don't forget to pump the brakes before you start driving. And if you got any questions, leave them in the comments down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Support the channel. Take it easy, guys.